everyone, for today's Halloween video we're going to be making yarn pumpkins. These are really simple to make and you can do different colours if you want. I just decided to use orange yarn because I wanted to look more like an actual pumpkin. To make these you're going to need orange yarn, some balloons, some PVA glue and pipe cleaners, preferably green, but you can do whatever colour you want. This can get a bit messy, so I'd suggest putting down some newspaper or some sort of tablecloth to protect your table. First thing you're going to do is blow up a balloon. Try and make the balloon be as round as possible. So if you blow it up too much, it's going to look more kind of egg-shaped or like a teardrop. Whereas if you only blow it up just a bit, it'll be nice and circular, just like a pumpkin. Take your yarn and cut off some lengths of string. So you're going to want to make the lengths of string about 2 to 3 feet long. Don't go any longer than that because you're going to end up getting them all tangled and it won't end up right. Cut maybe 10 of them and then you can cut more later if you need them. Once you have them ready to go, you're going to get a bowl and your PVA glue. So you're going to pour out some of the PVA glue into the bowl and you're then going to take a fork and have it to one side. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be completely submerging a single piece of yarn in the glue, making sure it is thoroughly covered, and then that's going to be going onto the balloon. When you've got enough glue on your string, you're going to want to then pull it up between the pieces of the fork like I'm showing here, so that you don't have a ton of glue dripping off it, but you still have enough glue left on to allow it to stick to the balloon. Take your balloon and you're going to wrap the yarn around it. It doesn't matter if you go sideways or upwards or whatever way you go, just make sure that it is pressing against the balloon and that it overlaps every now and then. Because that way it'll have a little bit of extra support if it's touching other pieces of yarn, and then the yarn is stuck to itself, so it'll hold its shape when it's actually coming off the balloon. And you're just going to continuously repeat this with all the other pieces of yarn and keep going until you've got a nice sort of web completely covering your balloon. When you've reached this stage, all you can do now is wait for it to dry. So ideally leave it at least overnight. So I did this at around lunchtime. So I left it, I got one of those little paperclip sort of peg things you use for binding lots of pages together. I don't know what they're called. And I hung it off a clothes horse I have for drying clothes. And that way it was able to just hang there. I put a piece of newspaper underneath it just in case it dripped a little bit of glue. And I just left it to dry for the night. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too enthusiastic the following day and I did not wait for it to dry 100%. I thought it was dry, but the yarn was still pretty soft. So when I tried to remove the balloon, I actually caused it all to collapse. So make sure it's 1000% dry and not just mostly dry. When you're trying to remove the balloon, what I do is I make just a really tiny hole near the neck of the balloon so the air starts to seep out a little bit, and then push on the balloon all the way around so that the yarn is no longer glued onto the surface of the balloon. And when everything is entirely lifted around it, you can then pull on the end of the balloon to make the hole a little bit bigger so that it lets out more air so it'll shrink. Now, as you could probably see on this pretty quickly, it didn't go to plan because my yarn was not properly set yet, and it stuck to the balloon in several places and couldn't hold its form on its own because it was too soft. So I actually ended up having to do an emergency organ transplant for this poor balloon yarn thing, and I had to get a new balloon and reinflate it with the yarn around it to let it finish drying. The following day, however, it was all good. It was all fine. It had actually dried successfully. It's not as pretty as it was originally. It's a little more lumpy in the middle, but you can imagine how nice it would have been if I hadn't gotten too enthusiastic about it. So the following day, I made sure to give it another night entirely just to make sure. I got to do my little snip near the neck. Always do near the neck, not the middle, because if you do the middle, it'll suddenly burst and collapse. Whereas if you do near the where you tied the balloon, it'll just sort of slowly leak out. And so this time, when I went and deflated the balloon, the ball actually held its shape and all was well. Now, originally again, sorry, if you're putting the yarn on the balloon the first time, you don't leave as big a gap near the neck as I did here, but this is because I was trying to save it, so I ended up doing it incorrectly. So there's a few pieces that aren't that pretty. There's a good bit of dried glue that's just kind of hanging off it, but it was all in all a successful save because I managed to piece it all back together, kind of. Get a green pipe cleaner, and you're going to want to just sort of put it through part of the yarn ball. So because I've got this massive gap, I'm just going to take the softest piece of yarn on that side and the softest piece of yarn on the other, and just kind of join them together to make it more of a sphere instead of just a bowl shape. And then you just twist them together so that it holds onto the yarn ball, and you can just sort of twist it around so you can hang it off something, or you can just twist that directly around something that you're wanting to hang it off. So if you're hanging it off a window and there's a little hook or something, you can just put that straight over the hook and twist it a few times so it's got a good grip, and then it can hang there because it's very lightweight, so it'll fly away if it's outside or if it's left near a place that's too windy, but it's sturdy enough that it's not going to collapse once it's properly dried. And there you have it. It's just a simple, quick little craft that, if you don't mess it up the first time, is done within a day, and it's just cute. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next Halloween video.